I still remember the day I first saw that old lake house. The air was cool, carrying the scent of pine and wet earth, and the water shimmered in the late afternoon sun like a mirror made of silver. The house had stood for over a century, weathered boards, ivy climbing the stone chimney, and the faint creak of the porch whenever the wind whispered through the valley. It was perfect, peaceful. I bought it not for luxury, but for the quiet, a retreat after years of city chaos. What I didn't know was that just beyond the hills sat an HOA community run by a woman who believed she ruled more than just her neighborhood. Her name was Karen, and from the moment she laid eyes on my property, she decided I didn't belong there. The first time we met, I was unpacking boxes by the dock, my hands covered in dust and cobwebs. I heard heels clicking on gravel before I saw her, blonde bob, pressed blazer, clipboard in hand like some sort of self-appointed sheriff. She smiled that kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "You must be the new neighbor," she said, her tone polished but sharp. "You'll need to register your property with the Lakeside HOA. I remember wiping sweat from my forehead and replying, "This house isn't part of any HOA, ma'am. It's been here long before your development." Her smile faded instantly, like a mask cracking. "Everything around this lake falls under our jurisdiction," she insisted, tapping her clipboard. "Rules are rules." I laughed politely, thinking it was a misunderstanding. "You might want to check your maps," I said. "My deed goes back to 1923. This land was here before your HOA was even a thought." But her eyes narrowed, studying me as if I'd just challenged her crown. "We'll see about that," she said flatly, then turned and marched back up the gravel path. The echo of her heels lingered in the air long after she was gone. I shrugged it off, but that night, as the crickets hummed and the lake reflected the moon, I couldn't shake an uneasy feeling. People like her don't walk away quietly. Days passed, and small annoyances started appearing. My mailbox was bent one morning. A notice of violation was taped to my gate, claiming my dock was unauthorized. I tore it down, assuming it was some mix-up. But the next day, 3 men in orange vests showed up claiming to be from the HOA maintenance division. "We're here to inspect the property line," one of them said. I asked for their IDs. They didn't have any. I told them to leave, and they did, but not before muttering something about "Karen won't like this." My stomach tightened. I'd seen power, hungry people before, but this was different. This felt like a test. By the end of the week, things got worse. I came home to find a chain across my driveway with a sign that read "Private HOA access only." My heart pounded as I ripped it off, furious, the audacity. Later that night, headlights flashed outside my window, slow and deliberate. When I stepped out with my flashlight, there was no one, just tire tracks in the dirt leading toward the HOA gate. I stood there, breathing hard, the cool night air stinging my lungs. I told myself I wasn't going to be intimidated. But deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from, because what happened next still feels unreal. The next morning, a white SUV pulled up while I was repairing the fence. Karen stepped out with 2 men, one holding a camera, the other a clipboard. She didn't waste time. "We've reviewed your situation," she announced loudly, as if performing for an audience. "Your home is encroaching on HOA property, and you'll need to vacate within 30 days. I froze, my hands gripping the wooden post. "Excuse me," I asked slowly. She handed me a folded paper with bold letters across the top. Notice of eviction. It wasn't from any court. It was signed by her. "You can't evict me from land I own," I said, voice trembling more with anger than fear. She smirked. "You'll find that ownership is flexible when you're surrounded by people who follow the rules." The cameraman circled, filming as if this was some reality show. I snatched the paper and ripped it in half. "Get off my property," I said. Karen laughed, motioning for her goons to step back. "We'll see what the county says," she replied. "You'll be hearing from our legal team." Her SUV kicked up a storm of dust as it drove off, leaving me standing there in disbelief. The nerve of her. I went inside, pulled out my deed, and read every line. The legal description matched perfectly. My property extended 200 feet beyond the oak tree by the fence line. And here's the kicker. Their HOA clubhouse, the one they were so proud of, sat squarely within that 200-foot boundary. I spent that night digging through old maps from the historical archives online. The more I researched, the clearer it became. The HOA had been built partially on my land, not the other way around. My pulse quickened. I felt a mix of anger and satisfaction, but I needed proof. The next morning, I went to the county assessor's office, my papers clutched tightly in my hand. The clerk confirmed it after a quick search. You're right. The Lakehouse parcel predates the HOA subdivision. Their southern boundary crosses your lot by about 40 feet. I exhaled, my palms sweaty. This was my trump card. When I returned home, Karen was waiting at my gate again, this time with a police officer. He's trespassing on HOA property, she declared. The officer looked confused, then turned to me. Sir, can I see your ID and property documents? I handed them over calmly, my heart racing. The officer stepped aside, called something in on his radio, and returned a few minutes later with raised eyebrows. Ma'am, he said firmly, this property's deed is valid. In fact, your HOA clubhouse overlaps his land. Karen's face drained of color. That's impossible, she snapped. We've had those facilities for years. The officer handed her back her complaint form. You'll need to take this up in civil court, but as of now he's not trespassing. You are. I stood there, silent, watching her struggle to keep her composure. Her lips quivered as she turned toward me. You think you've won? She hissed. I met her gaze and said quietly, no. I just think you finally met someone who knows the law. Her SUV sped off again, but this time I could tell she was shaken. I didn't know it yet, but that confrontation had set off a chain reaction I couldn't undo. That night, the lake was eerily still. No frogs, no wind, just silence. I sat on the dock with a lantern, the papers spread beside me, and thought about what she might do next. People like Karen don't give up, they retaliate. I was right. The next morning, I woke up to find spray paint across my fence. Get out. My stomach dropped. This wasn't about property anymore. It was about power, and she'd just declared war. I installed cameras around the Lakehouse that same afternoon. Every motion sensor light, every angle covered. I wasn't going to let her or her cronies intimidate me again. For a few days, things were quiet, too quiet. Then one evening, I saw flashlights moving near the edge of my property. I grabbed my phone and zoomed in on the camera feed. There they were, 3 HOA members digging near the boundary line, as if trying to reclaim it. I called the sheriff immediately, then stepped outside with my flashlight. You're on my land, I shouted. The beams froze, and one of them muttered. Karen said this was ours. I could hear panic in their voices when they saw the blue and red lights cresting over the hill. The deputies arrived fast. Karen pulled up moments later, flustered, still clutching that same cursed clipboard. She tried to spin another story, claiming I had illegally extended my fence line, but the sheriff wasn't buying it. I handed him my deed and the official survey I'd ordered that morning, stamped and signed. Ma'am, he said, this document proves the HOA facilities are on his land. You're the one trespassing, and if you keep this up, you'll be facing charges. The look on her face was priceless, equal parts fury and fear. For the first time, Karen didn't have a comeback. She just stood there, shaking, as the deputies escorted her and her crew off my property. The next day, I received an apology letter from the HOA board, not her. They claimed miscommunication and boundary confusion, but I knew the truth. Karen had overstepped, and now they were scrambling to protect themselves legally. Turns out, her actions had put the entire HOA under investigation. The county discovered multiple violations, illegal zoning extensions, unregistered permits, even misuse of funds. Within weeks, Karen was removed as president, and the HOA had to negotiate a settlement for encroaching on my land. They ended up leasing the portion with their clubhouse from me. The irony still makes me smile, but justice didn't feel like victory. It felt like closure. I still walk by that old clubhouse sometimes, now freshly painted and quiet, knowing every inch of it sits on land they once tried to take from me. The lake house stands strong, just as it has for 100 years, and the only sound at night now is the wind through the trees, not the hum of HOA patrol cars. Sometimes neighbors stop by, shake my hand, and whisper, "You really put her in her place." I just nod. I didn't want revenge, I just wanted peace. And that's the thing about authority. It's not about who shouts the loudest or waves the biggest clipboard. It's about who stands firm when the storm hits. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, share, and comment where you're watching from. Because sometimes the best justice is simply knowing the truth and owning every inch of it.